Hi there folks, Ginger Lefty again, and this time I'm going to do a slightly different video than what I normally do. As a YouTuber, you have to be able to make decent looking thumbnails for your videos so that people will hopefully like to click them. And one of the programs that you can do this in is the program I'm going to use today. It's called GIMP, and it's absolutely free. It's free whether you're on PC or Mac. It's completely open source. And it's very powerful, and you can get very professional looking results with it. Now, anyone who's watched my channel knows that I'm a guitar gear review channel, and I'm not an expert on GIMP. So if you're looking for a very advanced tutorial on GIMP, you've probably come to the wrong place. This is literally, the sort of the breadth of my knowledge with GIMP. It's all I need to do. I make YouTube thumbnails for my channel. And so I just wanted to show how I do it. If there's any other small YouTubers who can't go out and afford the more expensive software that'll do this sort of thing, this might be helpful for anyone who hasn't yet got into making their own thumbnails. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to actually go through the steps, and I'm going to make the thumbnail, which will be the thumbnail for this video. So at the end of it, we'll have the finished product, and that's what will appear if you decide to click on this video. So with that being said, let's get to it. So the first thing we need to do is we go up to our file menu, and we click File, New, and we get this Create a New Image dialog box. I have a template set up, but all the template does is basically populates the width and the height for me. So the width is 1920 pixels and the height is 1080 pixels, and that is the dimensions of a YouTube thumbnail. That's what they want you to, that'll fill the whole frame that they have available for the thumbnails. Now, so the other thing I want to do is I don't want it filled. I want my first frame to be transparency, and you'll see why in a second when we open it up. So now we've taken the first steps into creating our new image, and I want to put a border around this image. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select this nice light blue. Okay, now I'm going to use my fuzzy select tool, the wand with the star on top, fuzzy select, and I'm going to just select in that, and you can see now with the ants moving around, the little dotted ants that are moving around the screen, that whole image is selected. So now I'll go up to select menu, and I'm going to go border, and I'm going to select a border of 16 pixels and a hard border style, and I'm just going to select OK, and you can see now that we have the ants moving around in a border now. So if we go up to our edit menu and say fill with foreground color, the foreground color was the blue that we've already selected. So if I fill with foreground color, it's going to give me a nice bright blue border, which will just help the whole image when it's on YouTube kind of just stand out from the white background that's on YouTube. So we can go select none, and that stops the ants moving around, and now you can see that has a border. Now this is our first layer. Lots of other layers are going to be created as we go along. I want to keep this background layer on the top, so I'm going to rename that to top. It called a background, I'll just rename it to top so that we know to keep it on the top all the time. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to import an image, right? And what I want to import is basically an image of the GIMP window that we would work with. So I have it over here on my desktop. All the images I'm going to be using for this image that I'm going to drag into it are here. So I'm just going to click that and drag and drop it in there, and it's going to put it in. Now I'm going to have to resize this up. So we have a handy resize tool, and before I do that, I'll just drop that GIMP down. You'll see why in a second. And we'll go back to the resize tool. So it's called the scale tool. And we click that, and we click in our image, and we get up this box. Now, this little thing here can sometimes be locked or unlocked. We want it locked because that makes sure that the dimensions stay consistent with each other, that when one moves, the other moves in exactly the same ratio. So we need to make sure that that's locked, and I'm going to make this the same width, which is 1920. Click there and scale. Now we need to reposition it. So I'm going to drop down here, and I'm going to change for the moment from 50% down to 25%. You'll see why in a second. And I'm going to go to the alignment tool. I'm going to click my alignment tool. Now the reason why I changed it down was so I was able to select this bit here. So I click in there, and you'll see the squares popping up in the four corners. This means that that's the part that's selected that I can realign. So I'll just click that to align center on the horizontal axis and vertically center as well. Now that that's centered, perfect. And we can go up here. You see that we're a bit bigger than the image, so we can go up here, control click or right click if you're on a PC, and we go down to layer to image size, and we click that, and now this layer, the GIMP 2.10 layer, is the very same size as the image. And the reason we put it below is that we still have our lovely border shown around on top. If anything goes on top of that border, it will cover over the border. So everything has to go below that so that we still see our nice border as we go. We'll get on to the next step now. Is I want to bring in the image of myself that I have, and so I just click and drag this again, and this is going to need to be resized again. Now you'll see that I can click that, and I always find it's better to just click that, because sometimes if you don't click in exactly the right place, you can end up moving the wrong layer, and then you just have to undo. So if you always click move the active layer, then you'll see. So if I place that there, you can see that there's no white background for me. Anything that's behind it will show through. And I created this image from a photograph that I had that did have a background, and I used GIMP to remove the background of this photograph. That's sort of a different tutorial, but you can find out how to do that from loads of channels on YouTube. So I can move that now into the position that I want it, and I'll use my scale tool again on this, and I'll just drag up, which is another way that you can scale. Once this is locked, I know that my dimensions are going to stay the same no matter what. So I just want to drag that up to about, yeah, a little bit more. That's about good. And now we can go back to our move tool, and we're still on move the active layer. And so I'm just going to move this down to about there. Maybe a little bit over. Yeah, that's about good. Okay, I like that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to create a rectangle across that my text is going to sit on. It'll just help the text stand out. So I'm just going to go and select my rectangle tool, which is up here on top, rectangle select tool, and I'm just going to come out here to about there, and come down to about here, straight across like that, and that creates a rectangle selection. So I want to create a new layer for this, and I want it to be transparent layer. I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to call this rectangle. And I want this rectangle layer to be down just above the GIMP layer. You can see now I'll edit fill, and you can see how it sits below the border again, and it sits below my image, so it's just coming across like that. And what I want to do is I want to put another border on this, so we'll go select border, and I'll put a border of 5 on it just to give it, and I'm going to give it a hard border again. Select OK. You can see that that's just selected that. Now my background is white, so I'll fill with background color, and that's just going to give a nice white border on that. And then if I, staying on this rectangle layer, if I go over to mode, you see up here mode normal, and that is a solid color, but I can change this to a hard light or a soft light. So I like hard light for this. And now you can see that the image has suddenly become sort of transparent. So I've selected hard light on that, and I'm going to change the opacity down to 70%. Just see how that's going. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so now you can see that our background image still shows true, but that we've got this rectangle that's going to have our text on it. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a bit of a black overlay, which will just darken some of the images, especially the background is a bit grey. It'll help the lighter bits of my image, like here, it'll help that stand out a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, I'm going to create a new layer, and instead of fill with transparency, I'm going to fill with foreground color, and the foreground color is going to be blue. That's okay. I can change that. So fill with foreground color, and that creates a black image. Now I want to have this below my transparency, but I want to have it above the rectangle and the GIMP image. And I'm going to change the mode on this layer, so we make sure that this layer is selected. Again, I'm going to go from normal, and I'm going to change the layer mode to overlay this time. Okay, so we come down to overlay, we select overlay, and now you can see that it's dark, but it's very, very, very dark. So we want to change the opacity on this again down a lot lower this time. So that's about 30%. I can toggle on and off to see what it's doing, to show you what it's doing. So there it is, and it just helps that grey look a bit more, gives a bit more contrast between the front and that grey, and helps the lighter parts of it stand out a bit. So yeah, about 34 there. I like that. Again, I'll toggle off. You can see the lighter grey. Toggle on. These are optional things that I like to do. They're not essential, and if your image doesn't require that sort of color treatment, then you know, you don't need to do it, but it's just an optional thing, and it's just something I thought that I could show you that if you wanted to do, you could do. Right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to put a white border around myself. Okay, so we're not going to do it with a border this time. It'll look like a border, but there's a different technique for this. So if we go up to Allen Transparent and we select a new layer, and we're going to go for a transparent layer, and we'll say OK, right? And I'll leave that above for the moment, you can see. So we'll go back to Allen Transparent, and we want to right click or control click on a Mac again, and we want to alpha to selection. And now you'll see that the ants are selected around my image. Okay, so now we can go up to select and grow the image, right? We're going to grow the image by 10 pixels. We select OK, and you can see now that the ants have grown around me. Okay, so now if I go on to the other layer, click the new layer that we just made before we did that selection, and if we fill with background color, so we want to fill with that background color as white. So you can see all it does is it covers over that entire image in white. But if we drop that then just below Allen Transparency, now all of a sudden we have a nice border around ourselves that helps us again just stand out from the rest of the image. So that's looking good. So the next thing we need to do is we need to put in our text. So I'm going to put in YouTube thumbnails with GIMP. I'm going to do it in 2 different sizes. You'll see what I mean now in a second. So we go up and we select the text tool, and I'm going to come down and I can select my font that I want is Bebas New. It's a nice font. I'll leave it at size 62 for a minute. I don't want black, I want white text. Okay, so that's all good. We come over here and we click YouTube thumbnails with, and then I'm going to take my select tool again and I'm going to do a different box, and I'm going to type GIMP because I want the GIMP to really be big against the other one. So I can then come to my scale tool or whatever on this GIMP, make sure it's locked, and I can drag that out. Scale that. Once I have the 2 of those aligned, I'm pretty happy with that now. I go up to the GIMP layer and I will right click or control click on a Mac, and I will merge down. So that creates the 2 of them together now as one layer. So that just means if I want to move that, it all moves together now as opposed to moving separately. So I just want to get that centered around there. And yeah, pretty happy with that. So the next thing we need to do is we need to import Wilbur over here. Wilbur is the kind of the mascot for GIMP. So I just want to bring him in, and we'll put him there. We'll just go back to our move tool and move Wilbur up to about here. I'll actually center him along that text. He'll look a bit better. Now, and one of the things then I want to do to help him stand out a little better is I'll right click or control click on a Mac, and I'm going to alpha to selection again, and I'm going go up to my filters and light and shadow, and I'm going to put a drop shadow. I don't want the drop shadow to be that big, so I will drop down our blur radius to about 5, and I want the color to be white so it'll stand out. And okay, and now you can see that Wilbur has a little bit of a white drop shadow, which helps him stand out. I could do that more, I could do that less. I can redo the drop shadow on Wilbur if I wanted to, and it'll make the effect bigger, but I think he's okay there. He has a little bit of a drop shadow and it's helping him stand out. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to bring in my own logo. I'll just drop that into the image. Obviously it's very big there, and I want the logo to be up above most of the things, up above that too. And first of all, I'm going to use the scale tool because it's automatically comes in at about 1,000. Scale that down to 500, and then I'm going to move it over here so we just get the effect like that, and you can see it's behind. I better put it underneath that too. Yeah, there's better. So my border is still coming through. It's underneath the border at the top, and it's underneath that, so that's all good. And that's basically it. I've created you know, a thumbnail that I think is going to look well, and the next step I need to do is I need to export it as a JPEG, and you need to make sure that your size doesn't go above 2 megabytes image size. YouTube doesn't like image sizes above 2 megabytes, it won't accept them. So we want to export as, we want to change this to a .jpeg. So the .jpg, we'll call it .jpg. I'm going to save it as on the desktop there. And I usually leave it at 90% quality. It definitely makes sure that no matter how complex my images are, they always seem to come out at less than the necessary size. And that's it, we've exported it. Just, you can save the entire project then onto the desktop. Save as tom.xcf. That's the file format for a GIMP project. And that's it, guys. So hope you enjoy working with GIMP yourself, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye bye.